Today, I will be giving my last lecture speech to show you to never give up, regardless of what stands in your way. When the world throws everything it has at you and you feel like giving up, stand up and fight back by never giving up. The number one thing to remember is that life happens. Time will always go on, and there's nothing you can do to stop it or change what's happened in your past. But when life gets in your way, you have two choices. You can either let it step on you, or you can step up to the plate and never give up. I'm sure some of you here have dealt with some sort of discrimination in the past, whether it comes to your race, your gender, your sexuality, so on. I also have gone through a time in my life that I was discriminated against, and that was for being a type 1 diabetic. So I know how it feels to want to give up. I believe that regardless of what happens in your life, that you can do whatever you want and look it right in the face. But when you have the right support systems in place that are there to back you when you need them, you can get the confidence you need to stand up and do what you need/have to do. I have had a lot of outside sources of support that have reached out to me to help me never give up on life or what I love. A source of support that has been there for me in a time that I was down was NASCAR driver Ryan Reed. I did a lot of volunteer work with him and his program Drive to Stop Diabetes to help people find out if they were at risk for being diabetic and to help them find the necessary resources needed to help them if they were. Ryan is a type 1 diabetic just like me, and he knows the same struggles that I have to deal with in my everyday life. But Ryan isn't the only one who reached out to me to support me in a time of need. Another big source of support in my life is NBA player Corey Brewer. After I was discriminated against for being diabetic, and when Ryan told him about me, he called me up and invited me to his basketball camp in Florida. And I was able to go see him, as well as go to the University of Florida and meet the director of the Diabetes Research Facility, Les Jepson. Corey's family is all diabetics except for him, so he sees how stressful it is to manage diabetes, and he wanted to be there to help me. Although I have had a lot of support from outside influences, I have left out a certain group of people who have been there for me since the beginning of my life. And they are, of course, my parents. They are there for me 24/7, every day, whenever I need them, and they want me to succeed, especially when it comes to college, since I have a full-time class load, and when it comes to work, I currently have 3 jobs. All of these people have taught me to never give up. Ryan Reed was there for me right away after he found out through the American Diabetes Association about my story, and that he was able to get me in contact with Corey Brewer, who was also able to help me continue to do my passions in life. But without my biggest source of support, my parents, I wouldn't have been able to have the mentality to never give up. And as I said before, I believe that regardless of what happens in your life, that you can do whatever you want and look life itself right in the face and see through it. Regardless of what happens in your life, don't let it get the best of you. You can do whatever you set your heart on, and don't let anyone tell you differently. The situation where I found myself discriminated against was when I was 14, and my basketball coach wouldn't play me because I was a type 1 diabetic. I was just newly diagnosed, and my parents were very nervous about me going back to play on a select team. So they placed me on our village's recreational team so that I could readjust myself to playing on a team with a disability. 7 basketball games went by, and I was not played at all. And my parents and I had a hunch it was because of his ignorance of diabetes that he didn't put me into play. So after that 7th game went by, we went to the youth organization meeting to express our concerns, and we asked the president of the org if it was a private or public meeting. And he said it was a public meeting, meaning that we were allowed to record him. We asked the coach if he wasn't playing me due to my diabetes, and he said yes, and that he wasn't playing another kid on the team because of his asthma. The nature of the inequality itself is that he was ignorant and confused about diabetes, and that he didn't understand that even when he was given the go-ahead to play me by both my parents and my doctor, that he still wouldn't play me. The impact of this experience that I and others dealt with is that they knew that they were in the wrong. So on the following day, they held a team meeting at Skyline, but didn't tell me. So when I found out through one of my teammates and showed up, I was greeted with a, "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." To which I replied that I was a part of the team, and I had every right to be there just as much as everyone else on that team was. The coach then asked all of my teammates to make a choice, a decision. They could either continue to play out the last 3 games in the league plus tournaments and kick me off the team, or he could disband the team right then and there if they wanted me to stay. The coach then disbanded the team. This caused a huge disturbance as no one on the rec team was going to play anymore. This, of course, was an easy lawsuit, so instead of suing the village and the league to the ground, we opted for education in the league, so that all coaches are required to take classes on different disabilities, not just diabetes, so that the coaches would not be ignorant like mine. The American Diabetes Association stepped in and helped us out, and then got me in contact with NASCAR driver Ryan Reed, who told me to never give up, and he inspired me to continue playing the sport that I loved. Ryan then got in contact with Corey, and Corey invited me to Florida so that I could go to one of his basketball camps and get the opportunity to meet him. I ended up going, and I ended up spending a week with him. I also started volunteering with Ryan in his program Drive to Stop Diabetes, and he put my name on his NASCAR for one of his races. It was at Kentucky, and I got to go down to the pit boxes and see and take a picture with it and him. I continued volunteering with Ryan in the American Diabetes Association for about 3 years, going to different racetracks such as Indianapolis, Chicago, Bristol, Daytona, Miami, Atlanta, etc. Until finally the ADA reached out to me about being a national ambassador for the state of Ohio and going to Washington, D.C. to talk to Congress about raising money. I ended up going, and I asked 14 different congressmen and senators for $2.1 billion, and it ended up passing. After my story happened, I continued playing basketball. I didn't stop, and I have my support systems to thank for that. I ended up playing all the way through to my senior year of high school, and my coaches were extremely considerate and gave me the opportunity to be a student coach with them on my senior year, since I am so knowledgeable on the sport and that I was going to college for sports administration. My high school coach and friend was friends with Mick Cronin, and he got me in contact with him so that I could spend a week as a UC student manager under him right before the Canada trip. It was an amazing experience to be able to work with all of the players, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the struggles of what I've been through to get to where I was on the high school team through JV and then varsity. The nature of this situation, of me being discriminated against, allowed me to say that this man tried to stop me, but couldn't, and that if anything, I should thank him, because without him, I wouldn't have been able to help so many other people that would have never known that they were diabetic, or those who were diabetic and couldn't find the needs to pay for the insulin that they need to survive. I just want to reiterate one last time that as long as you have your heart set on something, that you should continue to do it. Regardless of what life throws at you, whether that be a chronic disease or ignorant coaches, you have the power to change how your life continues. Thank you.